Hello and welcome back to the Who's He podcast YouTube channel. So after what seemed an eternity for fans, The Mandalorian is officially back on Disney Plus with Season 3, Chapter 17, The Apostate. And was it worth the wait? Well, hell yes. Begin with a little recap of the story so far without mentioning what happened in the Book of Boba Fett, which may confuse some less die-hard viewers. The episodes get straight down to business with the Armourer inducting a young Mandalorian into the Children of the Watch, when a massive crocodile creature attacks the ceremony, and we get a scene which to my mind is straight out of a Ray Harryhausen movie. With Mandalorians fighting a losing battle, Din and Grogu flying to save the day in their hot rod version of a Naboo starfighter. And if you're wondering where this ship came from and why Grogu is with him and not Luke Skywalker, you better watch the Book of Boba Fett first. However, this is a fantastically well realised action sequence, and for once the CGI for the huge crocodile makes the creature look like it carries weight. And what I mean by that is that sometimes CGI figures look like they're floating over the ground rather than making any impact on the environment. But in this instance, there are no such worries. But Din's arrival sets in motion the plot for this season, and that is his atonement for removing his helmet in Season 2. Now this is where things can get a bit messy for viewers who haven't seen the Book of Boba Fett. In that series, the Armourer told Din that he could only be a Mandalorian again if he bathed in the living waters in the mines of Mandalore. So after meeting up with the Armourer again in this episode, she has to restate what he has to do to redeem himself, technically filling in the gaps left by the Boba Fett series. So after this scene, this episode basically has the job of setting up the plot threads for this season. We meet up again with Greef Karga, played by Carl Weathers, who has turned Navarro into a prosperous place and now also acts as a walking exposition machine. He has to explain to Din that Cara Dune has joined the Republic Special Forces, thus writing out the character after Gina Carano's right-wing tweets got her fired, and Moff Gideon is set for trial with the New Republic. While we would definitely not see Cara Dune again, I do expect to see Moff Gideon make an appearance sometime later this season. But Din's reason for visiting Greef Karga was to rebuild IG-11, who we last saw sacrifice himself in Season 1. Din believes that IG-11 will be useful in helping traverse Mandalore, but as there's no much left of him, Greef introduces Mando to the Anzellans, who he says can rebuild IG-11. And we've seen Anzellans before in the shape of Babu Frick in The Rise of Skywalker. We are also introduced to some space pirates led by Pirate King Gorian Shard, who I thought looked like Swamp Thing, but whether this character was achieved through CGI or makeup or perhaps a bit of both, I couldn't really tell. But it looks like we will see this character again after Mando made his escape. Of course, Din and Grogu meet up with Bo-Katan Kryze once again, played by Katie Sackhoff, who has now given up uniting Mandalore and sits brooding on her throne as her forces have scattered, and interestingly inquires whether Mando still has the Darksaber, which she believes is the key to uniting Mandalore under her. So all this setting up that took place, was this any good? Well, I thought it was great. One thing they haven't forgotten about The Mandalorian is that, at its core, it's a space western, in particular, a spaghetti western. And that's well realised in the scene on Navarro where Greef and Mando face off against a band of pirates with a duel and a quick shootout. I also enjoyed the comedy elements of Navarro, with Greef translating the Anzellans through the world's tiniest door. And what made it funnier was that Mando understood the Anzellans anyway. Also a nice little space battle between Din and the pirates in an asteroid field, which was a hark back to Jango Fett chasing Obi-Wan in Attack of the Clones, and was Gorian Shard's ship an old Rebel Alliance Hammerhead cruiser? I certainly thought so. And we have a nice little nod to the Star Wars Rebels series, with Grogu seeing Purrgils whilst they're in hyperspace. Now, if you haven't seen Star Wars Rebels, and I really suggest you do, you may be a bit confused as to what was happening. But even though this was a callback to the Rebels series, it also pays forward to the upcoming Ahsoka series, but I won't spoil that for you here. But with all this linking to previous Star Wars series and movies, I do worry that the Star Wars universe is turning into the Marvel universe, where everything is linked, and if you miss one film or series, well, you're lost. But I suppose with the House of Mouse in charge of both franchises, this was bound to happen. Anyway, and as usual, Grogu steals the show. Whether he's spinning around in Greef Karga's chair or grabbing Anzellans for a hug, it appears that the character has not lost its cuteness or its charm, and I'm still loving the character. And I'm hoping that Grogu gets as much character development this season as it appears that Mando is going to get. As well as redeeming himself in the eyes of the Children of the Watch, it also looks like he does generally want to help Bo-Katan reunite Mandalore. But I can see these two characters clashing over the Darksaber before any of that is going to happen. But right now there is no clear antagonist for Din to fight against, and that could take the season into some very interesting places. Will it be Moff Gideon, the Pirate King, or Bo-Katan, or all three? And will anyone want to use Grogu's burgeoning Force powers for their own ends? We have seen before that Grogu will use the dark side of the Force, so will this come into play later on? Well, we're going to have to wait and see. So, despite this being a very short episode, and it did pack a lot into its short running time without really revealing much, I am for one looking forward to see what comes next. This is the way.